Awesome. Hey, Align people, thanks for joining. This is going to be fun for everyone. So we're doing a show and tell today. So we have collected some great buyer and listing presentations that a number of agents in our office were nice enough to give to us. Hey, what you doing? Good. So what we're going to do today, so originally we kind of had to pivot this class, right? We were going to have the agents come and sort of talk about their presentations, explain why they had it, how it is, and you all know how hard it is to wrangle up a bunch of different real estate agents. So it's just me going through this stuff, and it's going to be fun. So I figured the best way to get all this information out, because we have a lot, I just hand it out to the class here. So we have some buyer guides and some seller guides. And I'm going to ask you guys to come grab a couple. Take a look, pass them around, share them around. We're going to take just a few minutes to peruse through each of these guides. So it doesn't really matter which one you take, but certainly make it a point to thumb through a few of them. Buyer, listing, because what I want to do after this is have a quick conversation about what all these have in common, sort of what the common threads that we see between all these presentations. We're going to talk a little bit about that, and then we're going to go over at the end on how to create them yourself. And I can email copies to anyone after the class who wants to see them because there's some great stuff in here. So we'll give you just a couple minutes here to thumb through these. And like I said, pass them out, share them, look at them, and get your eyes on a couple of them if you can. Jen? It's going good. We're just getting started here. So we have a number of buyer and listing presentations around. And we're just taking a couple minutes to look through some different ones. And the goal is to pull out some commonalities. And we're going to have a quick conversation after that about sort of some common threads we're noticing in these and some pieces. So just feel free to grab a couple as they're circulating around the room and just thumb through them. Hey, Molly. We're just taking a couple minutes to thumb through these different presentations. So feel free to grab a couple as they're circulating around the room. And then we're going to have a conversation about the common threads that we see between all these different presentations. Yeah. This is the show part. Then we're going to tell later. Show and tell. Yeah. Yeah, that one's fun. The Voorhees team one. I know.
Brings me back.
Good. I mean, I would have gone Monopoly personally, but
Oh, I mean, that would be the investor.
a little too on the nose. That
Investor version.
that too, yeah.
There we go.
I actually do know for that because I used to work with Robin that when investors buy houses, as a part of her closing, if she has a little Monopoly house, she gives them.
Cute.
It's like, because you know, that's her like thing. It's like real life Monopoly.
Cute.
It is. It's fun. How you guys feeling? A couple more minutes? Yeah. Okay. Yep, definitely don't want to rush. There's a lot to thumb through here. Also, if you get the Boco one, we can take a moment to admire Jen's hairstyle from 2012 or whenever that was.
Oh, yeah.
That would have been 12, would have been like 16. What's that?
That's what you were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
Like, what is?
16 cents a page, that adds up, you know? Yes, I can email. A big old file.
That
Yeah.
your sticker was.
I know, right? You missed, yeah, missed my little gent joker.
I thought, now I understand it.
What's that?
Didn't know she was on House Hunters.
Oh, yep.
What?
I said, you have it. A couple of our agents, I think Graham was on House Hunters too.
I remember him on there.
Really?
Yeah, and
Couple agents on House Hunters.
Mark Parrish. When I was at South DC.
You're on blank.
All right.
I'm asked. It is up to you.
So I will be sending out, I can send out copies of these to anyone who wants them.
Yeah, send them out.
Yeah, I want to just, so that was the show part. I feel like we all got, we feel good. We've seen enough. Do we need a couple more minutes looking through these?
We can look and talk, right?
Well, that's actually brings up a great point. I was going to try to work this in at some point. First thing I want to say, and this is, I guess, something I do, and I believe in it firmly. I love having presentations, both buyer and seller. And I think it's important to know when to give them to the buyer or the seller. In my personal preference, I am either for a seller, I'm going to email it ahead of time and then give it after the consultation. And same with the buyer, I use it to guide my conversation, but I don't give it to them until I'm done talking, because the second you hand something that pretty to somebody, their eyes go away from you onto that, and they're not listening to anything you say. So that was one thing I wanted to make sure we got out there, and that was a great opportunity. So thank you. So yes, you can keep looking through them, but just know when you are presenting, holding your consultations, your buyers are going to do, or sellers, the exact same thing. You give that to them and want them to listen to you, they can only do one thing. And if we did a good job, these will be really pretty looking arguments. So just a little aside. Now, what did we find in common with all these? What were some common threads that we saw reoccurring through all of these different presentations? Process. Yeah.
Going in depth with like the pieces of the process too, for the most part, majority of them have more detail.
Yeah. Why is that?
The fact section,
A what?
or like a fact section,
What do you mean a fact section?
like just answering common questions.
Gotcha.
as well
Yep.
Regarding the process.
Yes. Why do you think those are important to add into these presentations? Anyone else? Yeah.
Like, what is this?
Bringing value.
Yeah, I feel like it's super common for people to do, even experienced agents, right? Like this is something that we do every single day. Like we just live in it, or it's hyper aware. It seems like it should be common sense, but for the majority of our clients, this is either the first time they've done it or the first time they've done it in a number of years. And it's also a lot of money. It's incredibly nerve wracking. So I think that's one thing that's really important to get across during not only your consultation, but in your presentations, is getting really in depth about the process. You know, you cannot be too thorough about what's about to happen, what you can expect, because not only is that going to ease their nerves, make them feel more comfortable with you, identify you as a person they trust, but it's also going to save you a lot of grief during the process, right? I mean, how many people have done an inspection, had their clients come back and say, great, let's just have them do the whole thing? No, you can't do that, right? That's why it's important. This is an example of this, like when we're going through the process, to really get in. So when we talk about inspection, I make sure to talk about every time, this is what inspection is for. This is not for broken blinds or a flickering light or whatever. This is to find serious health and safety issues. If we find serious health and safety issues, this is how we can address them. But your average buyer is going to see that 50-page inspection report, and maybe they're expecting like nothing to come back. They see that, even though we know that's totally normal, they're going to be totally floored, terrified, and you might lose a deal off of that. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to a lot of people. So getting really, really detailed about what each step is going to entail and get in depth with that, not only going to make them feel more comfortable, but it's going to save you a lot of grief along the way. What else did we notice that's those common thread piece?
Something I liked
Yeah.
was like how commissions work, because I get that question all the time.
That was a good one. Yeah, I don't think that was a common thread. I think that was only in one, but I loved that too. It might have been in two of them. Was it a couple? Okay. I thought that was so good, especially for sellers. Right? Because again, it's a lot of money and people want to know what they're getting for that. Yeah, I think that's great. What else? Mhm.
Like about the agent or about the agency.
Yeah, that was a good one. Right, a lot of them had bios at the very beginning. Some of them had some stats. I think that's incredibly important as well. You know, that really is what I refer to that as is establishing your value proposition, right? And every single agent should have a value proposition. I'm not going to put anyone on the spot. In past, I have like value proposition classes. What's your value prop? But I'm not going to do that today because this isn't a value proposition class. But it is worth noting because we're going to start to see a common thread here of what we're establishing. Because any home buyer in any market, I don't care, they only want two things from the realtor. They want someone that they like, and they want somebody that they trust. And these buyer packets, although we're not going to read through this entire packet, we can leave this as a leave behind, and everything in this packet should serve to either make us likable or make us a trusted resource in real estate. And the value proposition is the very beginning of that, right? Why should I work with you? So I think there's a common misconception out there that realtors sell homes, right? That's our product. Well, that's not necessarily the case, right? I mean, that is the medium of which we serve our clients, but that's not what we're selling. We're selling ourselves. We're selling the experience that you get when you buy a home from me. And that's why that's the first thing on almost every single one of these packets, because that is the product that helps you, right? Ford makes cars, realtors make experiences. And that's exactly what this value proposition is meant to lay out. Now, I know in a lot of these, there are a lot of like stats, you know, market, here's the homes I've sold. One of them had a map of like the areas they service. And for a lot of newer agents, I hear a lot, it's like, I don't have a value proposition because I don't have a track record of success that I can share with people. But remember what I said before, people want someone they like, and they want someone they trust. I never said they want someone who can sell 100 houses in a year. So in that value proposition, you don't need to get caught up on your accolades as a realtor, but who are you as a person? Because this is oh man, I was gonna pull my best Julia Israel. But 100% of our clients are people, right? This is a very personal experience. This is a people's game. So they just want to, you know, with your value proposition, if you don't have the track record of success or sales history, just who are you? What do you like to do and what can you get, right? For example, my quick 30-second elevator pitch for my value proposition is I'm going to find you a house you like at a timeline you think is reasonable for a price you think is fair. Not only that, but I'm going to protect your investment just like it was my own, and we're going to have fun doing it. Because I don't know if anybody ever told you this, but real estate is supposed to be fun. That's my value prop. It's easy, it's short, it's concise. And to get anything out of this class, take that, right? Because the value propositions we see on here, it's like a paragraph long, it's more like a page long. You're not going to get that anywhere. But you should have a value proposition, and you should know how to express it concisely in 30 seconds or less. Because if somebody asks you, why should I work with you? And it takes you're going, well, you see, the thing about me is that when you work with me, they're done, they're gone. You need to be confident about that value proposition. So I wanted to make sure we address that because I think that's the most important part in either of these packets. What else did we notice that was a common thread? Yeah.
Instead of just all these paragraphs, all these things, like, okay, what does the process look like?
Love it. And I think that ties more into, again, like how we use this, right? Because these do have a lot of stunning visuals, and I don't want someone to be looking at those while I'm talking. That's why I feel like these are best. Like when I do a buyer presentation, personally, again, everyone's different, but I have this in my hand. I go through it. I mean, I have it memorized by now, so I don't need it, but it's still nice sort of keep me on track. Okay, here's what we're talking about now. And then out to the end, I get into that. Then leave it behind. So they're thinking, especially if they haven't signed it yet. It's a nice leave behind. But yeah, those visuals are great, and they can be distracting. But
But yes, to your point.
anything else? Yeah.
One thing I did on this presentation was went through, whatever I chose to include in that. What I said about it was, I said, now all of this is just an indication of amazing barrage of tools that I have because of the people I work with and because of the company that I'm connected. This is just an indication.
Mhm.
I and all these things are at it was a good way for me because I literally never had a list before to say you're not just working with me, you're working with this amazing
My network of agents.
of technology and agents and everything else.
And that is a great point as well to tie into that value proposition we were talking about. Because if you do want to put in some stats, if you do want to sort of back yourself up with some hard numbers, you can use the office, you can use the network because you're not alone in this. We're a hive mind. You have the support of your leadership team, your fellow agents, you have all that. Yeah.
For lenders, you've got a lot of other things that you can kind of bulk out to show.
I love that. Yeah, absolutely. Because that's a great way to look at it. A lot of people don't, but your lender partners, your title people, they are your team because they're part of delivering that experience, which again is your product. So that's another great point there, Tanner. Thank you.
You can even add in like the KW Lakes office as like a part of your team, right? Like just having a logo there and explaining the collaborative environment and, things like that. I think that goes even further when you're a solo agent. I even like on the presentations I did, I put my PC coach as part of my team.
Absolutely.
Yeah, but she was right there next to me, and then I put a transaction coordinator that I haven't worked with, but I plan to work with. And
Yeah.
No one asked any questions.
No, why would they? I love it. Fantastic. So let's dive. I mean, anything else anyone wanted to comment on the commonalities before we sort of shift gears and dive into the specific presentation?
I think the one thing I found interesting on all of these is that a lot of them are stock photos versus like using like a specific brand photo shoot. And I know when I was a starting agent, that was always kind of intimidating of like, do I use the stock photos or not? But I think they're good representations of like, you can use that. Make sure you're choosing ones that look like a home in Minnesota, right?
The palm trees,
Big homes that look
the
like
Adobe here.
California, yeah. But I think that all of them are really tasteful, and the ones that maybe didn't have as much, just I think getting like firm on like what are your colors, and then being able to show your personality a little bit through that too.
Oh, cohesive branding
Yeah.
is so important.
Yeah.
Yeah. we'll talk about that a little bit when we get into creating our own, but absolutely having that continuity. Because I'm sure we saw a couple of those that had the bulk buy and sell. They were aesthetically the same. And yeah, that's incredibly important. And I bet you Dollars of Donuts website looks a lot like that too. That's where they're going next, you know. Cool. Anything else we want to add in here? So one interesting thing I saw as sort of a common thread, and we'll talk about the buyer packets right now, and then I just want to dive into those a little bit, and then we'll move into the listing presentations. But they were all set up really similar, and it was by no coincidence, but they almost 100% set up for the main points of it. Value proposition, who am I? Wants and needs, who are you? And the process. What is this going to look like? And there is a lot of other stuff in there, but if you break down what that conversation should look like at its core, it's exactly that, right? Because remember, we're going through this, people they like, people they trust. Value proposition. Thank you so much for meeting with me. Here's a little bit about myself, my experience. Enough about me, I want to talk about you. You know, when we're holding these presentations, it should be 80-20, them talking versus you talking, because especially for a buyer, again, we're focusing on buyers, this is where we build that relationship. For a lot of cases, this is going to be our first substantial meeting, and I want to learn about you, right? If you catch yourself doing the majority of the talking, if you're just going on and basically reading through your packet, stop because you're doing it wrong. In this stage, when we start to identify what they want in their house, what their goals are, who they are, all we're doing is asking questions, letting them go. And then we're asking more questions, digging deeper, 3 levels on everything. Is anyone comfortable with holding? And sorry, I might have gotten track here. We're talking about the needs analysis now. So we had the value proposition. I feel like we already established that, right? When I sit down with somebody and they say, why do I work with you? I'm not going to read the page on the paragraph. They can read that later if they want. I'm going to tell them my 30-second elevator pitch, and then I'm going to say enough about me. I want to learn about you. What do you do for work? Do you have any kids? Do you have any pets? That was a questionnaire. Oh, I think that was on one of the other ones. Someone had a questionnaire like that. I love that. One of the things I would always do in my presentations is I would ask if they have any pets. I would write it down. At closing, I'd give them either a dog collar or a cat collar, their pet's name on it, and their new address, and it would cost $2, and they would just go through the roof. So no matter how good of a job you do, they like their pets more. So just lean into it. But we're getting to know these people, and the best way to do that is to ask questions. So as far as we go through the wants and needs of how we help someone identify the kind of house we're going to help them search for, is anyone comfortable sort of role playing this with me? Sure. Do you want to be the agent or the buyer?
Buyer.
Okay. So, awesome. So I assume you've done a little bit of research up until this point. So just tell me a little bit about what you're looking for in your house.
Yeah, well, when I look on Zillow, I'm usually putting in like 4 bedrooms and at least 2 bathrooms. And we really want to be in South Minneapolis.
Perfect. Next question. That's the wrong way to do it, right? Don't do that. Okay, so here's how you should do it. Awesome. So 4 bedrooms. What would you use those bedrooms for?
Well, I mean, we both work from home, my husband and I, so we would like to have a space that has an office and
Okay.
preferably have separate, and that we have 1 kid.
Okay, so say that again. So an office, your bedroom, 1 kid, and a guest bedroom, you said?
Yeah, we would like a guest bedroom. His family lives out of state, so it'd be nice, but it's not really a requirement. We have other properties.
As far as the office goes, 'cause I hear that a lot. Now, does that have to be a bedroom, or if we found a perfect 3-bedroom house that had a really cute nook off the front of the living room that would work as an office, would that work for you too, or does it need to be sort of closed?
Because we have a child and we have a nanny, it is important to have.
And then you had said that the guest room was not a breaker, it'd be nice, not a requirement.
Yeah, if we had something like a big enough room for the office, or maybe have a little couch or something in there, that would be fine.
So what I'm hearing, the need is 3 bedrooms, but ideally you'd like 4 bedrooms?
Yeah.
Now, if we found a house with 3 bedrooms, the opportunity to build a 4th bedroom, that'd be ideal, or how much work would you want to put into this?
That'd be preferred. We really don't.
Okay. See, if I just took her answer at face, and then we're going to go to the bathrooms, right? Why are the bathrooms important? important. Do you need 2 tubs? Are they 2 half bathrooms? Would you add a bathroom if you needed to? But we're digging deeper because if I just took her at face value, if I want a 4-bedroom, 2-bathroom, great, let's go find it. We just lost all these homes that would work for her, that, you know, she wouldn't even get a chance to see. And there's nothing worse than someone sending you a house on Zillow saying, why wasn't this on my search? This is perfect. That's essentially the why we want to dig deeper, is so we can really peel back the onion and figure out what it is they really, really want. A lot of buyers know what they want, but what they want and need is very different, right? Now, that conversation, you just repeat that, right? And then you just say, what else? And then they say, like, I want a nice kitchen. Great. What is a nice kitchen? What is that? And then, you know, I like to throw those scenarios. What if you had a really nice kitchen, but it had these really ugly golden oak cabinets with these brass handles? Like, would you redo that? Some people say yes, some people say no, but it forms a really clear picture of the houses that we're looking at. That way, if I'm showing you 5 homes, we're putting an offer in at least one of those homes. And if not, we're having this conversation again because I did it wrong. Now, another reason why we want to dive deep like that is because we're listening, we're making eye contact. And that is the #1 point when we start to build trust with these people. This person is listening to me, he's asking me questions, he's repeating back what I'm saying, and he understands what I mean, right? That's, I'd say, the biggest piece of that wants and needs analysis that we do as part of the buyer presentation.
One thing, just as a new agent, you know, one of the mistakes that I'm realizing now, what went up to me, is that I didn't dig enough. So like I have this, you know, client we're actively looking right now, and one of the things she really wants is privacy, and one of the things she really wants is no tuck under garages, and like she has a whole other list. And I haven't seen that before, only seen, but you know, I had been a little frustrated, and I've kind of vented it to Lauren, and she's like, why does she want privacy? And I'm like, I really want this. And like, why does she want it tuck under garages? I was like, I have no idea. I don't know. So now I'm like going back and kind of doing that, but I could have saved myself a lot of probably unnecessary work and gotten like more clear on what she is also looking for if I could have dug a little deeper. So I would I'm just living it firsthand. Like this like I'm a brand agent, so like just taking everything they say at face value and just going with that versus trying to understand why. I think that's
That's a perfect case study. And again, as you've seen, right, this isn't just for them, this is for you as well.
Yeah.
Saves you a lot of frustration.
Yeah. A lot of people I don't think really think about why they need it. Or I think they just like put in a lot of things. I was telling Anna yesterday, I'm like, a lot of times if you just ask someone like, hey, what are you looking for in a home? They're gonna tell you what literally put in below. Right? Or tell you their criteria.
I love that line that you said. In Zillow, I've been putting in this.
Yeah, exactly. I put in 4 bedrooms, I put in 2 bathrooms, and this is the area that I put in. Like, okay, cool. That's great. That's not what I'm trying to get out of you though. And I've just learned along the way that a lot of times clients will say something that's not actually what they need to.
What?
Yeah. Crazy.
Never.
Wild.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that they don't even mean it, you know? I mean, even in terms of like for me and like the role play with you, right? Like if I was digging in more with that person, I'd probably start to question them a little bit on the guest bedroom actually being much more important to them than what they're saying, because they're trying to figure out how to make it work in another part of the room versus just saying,
Adding
like,
the
I
things
need
on.
4 bedrooms. And I think Minnesotans especially, if you're like, well, would you do 3 bedrooms instead of this, right? Most people want to be accommodating to you, and so they want to tell you what they think you want to hear. And a lot of times they'll be like, well, yeah, I guess I could do that. But listening to like the little pieces of like, if they keep bringing it up, it's probably because it is actually more important than
Absolutely.
what they're telling you.
Yep. I feel like that's part of those, like a nuanced thing too, is because you can, at least I feel like I can kind of pick up when that is happening, and they're like, well, I guess, and it's like, well, it doesn't have to be. It's your house. Like it can be 4 bedrooms. I'm just asking. And then, like, okay, maybe 4 bedrooms. But that's a really good point, and that is something you don't want to bulldoze somebody and like tear apart the house they want. So that's so thank you for bringing that up. That's a really good point. David.
One interview technique that's really good and can get you to a deeper level, I think, is at that point where you've got superficial answers, it has more depth to it,
Mhm.
is just to say, tell me more about
Mhm.
that.
And listen,
And because even if they don't start talking right away, eventually what they'll do, nature affords a vacuum. People don't like it when they're quiet. They'll actually start talking based on what they're feeling, they're thinking. And when they do that, you're proving a much higher value because there's a trust thing happening. It's a portal into that.
Yep.
Not to let it pressurize too much, but it's one thing I found that with salespeople, or whatever we want to call it, it's the thing that when I get to that point with somebody I'm working with, and they do that, I go, okay, this person actually wants to hear what I need, even if I'm not articulating it.
Mhm.
And that can help a lot.
Yeah, that's a very good point. I like what you said there about silence being a vacuum.
Yeah, because we're ready with our next question, and we'll miss the answer.
Mhm. And it's one of those interesting things too. I mean, that's a presentation tool as well. I mean, I'm sure you notice every team meeting, Ali asks, let's get something good, and it sits until someone can't stand it anymore and says something. And it's true. And like 10 seconds of a conversation feels like 10 seconds. 10 seconds of silence feels like 10 minutes.
Yeah.
So also don't, abandon that. If you're gonna just sit, listen, respond, but yeah, give them room to talk.
And it gets people beyond, because everybody scripts themselves. I'm gonna meet with an agent, and I know what I'm gonna tell them.
Yeah.
And it's at a very superficial level.
I want to use, thank you for sharing. That's fantastic. Any other comments or anything on the wants and needs analysis? Pretty straightforward stuff. I did want to address one more thing. I know we already talked about the process, sort of why that's important. I don't want to belabor the point, but I did want to use this as an opportunity to address. I feel like it's a big problem that a lot of agents have that takes a long time to figure out how to handle. And that is when somebody comes with a bad lender, pre-approved with a bad lender. I always address that as part of the process because we either want to need
Stop. How do we know, how do you know it's a bad lender?
through experience. But I'll give you some general rule of thumb. If it's a very large bank,
Oh, yeah, sure.
they probably are not going to be very attentive, and they're going to work banking hours, not realtor hours. So that makes it very
Yeah.
thin.
Okay.
And just as you go, you'll have bad experiences with lenders, so you kind of know. But and again, it's a very nuanced thing, right? So when at the end of my wants and needs analysis, we'll inevitably just talk about budget, and then I ask, have you been pre-approved? Yes or no? We'll take it from there, and then that sort of caroms into the process. Great, here's what we expect. So first process, pre-approval. I see you're already pre-approved. That's fantastic. Now, if it is a lender that I like or trust or that I know, great, let's go. If it is a larger bank or maybe a less reputable online lender that you've had bad experiences with, I use this script to sort of open the conversation because they don't know, right? A lot of times when you say that, that's who I bank with, so it was just easy. I just made a phone call. I already bank there. And I say, awesome. So I see already pre-approved. That is fantastic. That's going to help us really get an idea and let us set this budget right now. But would you like some unsolicited advice? They're always going to say yes, because that's what they're there for. So a lot of people don't know this, but much like all realtors are not created equal, all lenders are not created equal as well. Just like realtors have reputations within a market, lenders also have reputations in the market. So as your advocate for getting you a house that you want, I want to make sure that we are sending every offer in with the strongest approval letter possible. Because what I don't want to happen is for you to find the perfect house, we send over an approval letter with maybe a less reputable mortgage broker on the header. And that agent sees it, they've had a bad experience, and they're going to work with somebody else. So if you would like, just want to make sure you have all the options. I have two fantastic lenders that have a sterling reputation in this market for getting deals done, getting offers accepted, closing on time, and making it easy for all parties. And I have had experiences where our offers have been accepted because of that letterhead not decline it because of it. So if you would like, I'd be happy to introduce you with my lenders to make sure that you're getting the absolute best experience in this process. Is that okay with you? They're going to say yes every single time, unless it's like their uncle is the mortgage broker for them. So just a quick conversation. I want, and again, I'm not going to like, can you learn this or you be comfortable having it? It is sort of a delicate conversation. I said, you did something wrong, let's fix it. But that's how I approach it. I say that every time, even if it is a decent lender, I want them to work with my lender because they know me, they know my processes. And I actually did the math. 90% of the deals I closed were with the same lender. Because I say that every time, and the majority of people just go, okay, sure. And if it's a good lender, they're probably going to have better first-time home buyer packages, better down payment systems, better rates. Because those big box stores, they just kind of give you whatever, and they don't really care or dig to make the deal work for the client. They don't care. So that was something I wanted to just address as we talked about process, because it is a delicate conversation that not everyone innately knows how to have. Any questions about that? Cool. Real good on time. Let's dive into we're going to talk about the listing packets a little bit, some points that were in there that I think are really important to keep in. And I obviously, this is a conversation, so what you guys think are important too. And then we'll dive in the last 10 or 15 minutes into Command, and I'll show you how to create custom presentations using design. Cool. So as far as this, the listing presentations, is there anything, I know we already sort of had the conversation around what we're common, but was there anything in there that really stuck out to someone that was powerful, that was consistent, that you want to make sure you add into your listing presentation?
I liked the map with where people have, where that agent has. I know that I did a listing for an open house for Katie Bean, and she still had her listing packet there. So I was like, oh, let me check out this. And her map is like blown up, obviously. I mean, my map would literally be empty, so I wouldn't do that. But I liked how that kind of like showcases that someone does actually have a lot of experience. I mean, if you're new and you have no experience, that doesn't make any sense.
Yeah. I'd be careful with the map. The nice thing about these is you can customize them as you need. But like what I would always fear, or not fear, but this is a scenario which I would exclude that map is, say the majority of my deals are in like South Minneapolis area. And then I'm taking a listing appointment in White Bear Lake.
Yeah.
You're gonna be like, well, this kind of.
Yeah.
So I do like the map too, but I would say that's one where I would use it. Like if I'm in Kingfield and that's a situation, yep. This is my neighborhood. These are my homes. This is everything I sold in here. You probably know some of them because there's so many. But if it's not in the market that I'm having that appointment, I would exclude that for sure. But and so we're talking here. Anything else?
I don't know who did it, if it was buyer seller, but how they listed their preferred vendors in there. I think that's a nice.
I like that a lot too. And that sort of helps circumvent, for buyers, that lender conversation. It's already there. And for sellers, that is so important because a lot of times there's going to be work to be done.
Yeah.
They're going to want to get the home showing ready, painters,
handyman,
Yep.
plumbers, all that stuff.
We'll go with that some of them had like next steps. Like after we meet today, like to prep for photos or anything like that.
Yeah, thank you, Molly. And that's sort of what I was fishing for there. Because I think that's the first, and that's the biggest difference between a listing consultation and a buyer consultation. Is the buyer consultation easy peasy. What do you want to buy? Let's go find it. Here's what the process is going to look like. The seller conversation, that's more nuanced conversation. It's definitely a harder sell. There's a reason that 80% of buyers just go with the first agent that they meet. And I don't know the number for sellers, but I know it's a lot less. I mean, you get a lot more people interviewing agents with sellers, which again is why these packets are very important to have as a lead behind, because they might have a stack of them. You want yours to stand out for sure. But to that, Molly, the process, it's a lot trickier, right? When you're selling a house. And that's simply the first conversation you need to have is, what does your timing look like? Do you need to buy another house? Okay, how are we going to switch these houses? I don't want to make you homeless. How are we not going to do that? And laying out those options in a buyer packet makes it very easy to have that conversation with them, leave that behind so they can review it again, because there's a lot of information to take in here. So timing's a big one. And a lot of times you're going to have secondary consultations, right? Like you go there, you check out the house. Great. This is what we need to do to get it photo ready. Let me know when you've done it. Don't come back and take a look again, because sometimes it could take multiple months. And that kind of brings me to one more thing I wanted to talk about as far as this process, is pricing. Right? Are you always gonna price a house, give them a number the first time you walk in the door? Why not?
Because you haven't been in the house.
Yeah, you haven't been in the house and you don't even know their timeline yet, right? Exactly. Yeah, if I went and this happens all the time, right? I go, the initial consultation, great, I have an idea, right? I've looked at the comps, but I don't even present comps in the first conversation. I tell them, well, actually, I don't want to hear the lead yet. I want to hear what someone else says. So if you go to a house and the seller says, how much can I get for it? And they want an answer. How would someone handle that?
Range. Yeah, give them a range. If we were to list today, the comp, because I mean, presumably you would have done some research and looked at comps, but you don't know the state of their house. Is it a shithole, for lack of a better word, sorry? Or is it in beautiful condition? So give them a range maybe, because we would know that.
Yeah, I think that's fantastic.
Geez, or the list price.
Mhm.
This the intention that will generate enough interest over, or we really wants to organize at this price, we can wait, waiting for that one person to pay what we're asking.
Yep, having a pricing conversation around pricing competitively, incredibly important in that. What's that?
Motivation to what their outcome.
Yeah. What would be a win for you?
But why are you moving?
Yeah.
Or why do you want to sell your house?
Yeah, exactly. David?
An interesting thing happened in my last listing, I owned it. When we closed, the person at the closing office said, wow, you got a pretty good deal. Put it on the market for $679. We sold it one day for $690. At that point, my client, who's a friend of mine, she initially said to me, she goes, I want to work with you, but my mom said I have to talk to this realtor she works with all the time. That realtor gave them a price when they first met, without doing any research. I didn't know that until that minute, but she said, by the way, she wanted to put it on the market for $589. And I just looked at her and I went, thanks for trusting. Because the first time we met, she goes, how much? And I said, well, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna look over your house. I'm gonna do some deep research and then we're gonna talk about price.
Yeah, because you need to price the home for the market you're gonna be selling in. And that's even the tough thing with comps, because the sold comps don't give you the market, even if you're listing that day, they give you the market that was 30 days ago. And as we've seen, especially now, that can change overnight. The Fed wants to raise interest rates again, we're gonna start to feel that, So yeah, I think that's a great way to put it too, and use an example like that if you have it, because it works every time, right? If you come in and they want to list in 3 months and they want to price, I'll give you a range, and then we're going to have this conversation after we have our photos, because that is what we're selling here. That is the first impression, is the photo. So I'm not going to be able to tell you how we can price this house until I know exactly what it is I'm going to be selling. So here's the range. Whatever you do to get it ready is going to be up to you on where we fall on that, and then we're going to revisit that conversation later, because we have no idea what the market's going to be like in 3 months.
To Anna's point, like usually, I'll give different opportunities too, right? Of how much, and kind of meeting the seller where they are in terms of, do you have funds to do painting and cover up that bright red wall? And can you replace the carpet? Are these expenses that you can actually manage? Or is it something that you just can't do at all, right? So I'll usually give kind of 3 different pricing of where I would see us going. And then it's usually they're talking about, like, we'll always solidify a price 2 weeks prior to us going on the market.
That's exactly how I handle it.
Kind of gives it up to them of like, well, yeah, I could invest 10,000 to make 30,000. And along with like I don't give a price before I get to the home, but I do pull 3 opportunities usually, like one that is actively on the market and showing like, hey, here's in your neighborhood right now. And I usually pull a sold that is on the higher end of the comps, because it also, like, let's say you do walk in and their home is beautiful, great, awesome. This is a comparable home now to yours. Compared to like home, obviously not this, that we would, but it really helps the flip side when people are like, well, but the home down the street sold for $650,000. And that house is all modernized and all of that, and their home is like, has been updated in 40 years. You know, you can say, well, like, here's where they're getting the pricing, right? Like, we can clearly tell some pretty big differences between your home and here.
Yep.
And to be honest, for you to bring it up to that, it would make sense. So here's where we meet. And then usually people are, oh yeah, no, I just feel like that's not on.
And I usually will bring an extra set, like it won't be part of this, but I'll print out some InfoSparks data.
Yeah.
Just in case they have that conversation, because then you can show, it's like, as far as like pricing ranges and stuff. I just like to have a lot of numbers for when those conversations come up. You see how much this price has fluctuated. That's great. One more thing I wanted to mention was marketing, and I feel like that kind of can blend into this conversation as well. I don't think I saw any of it in here. Well, you did see a lot of this, but a lot of people also had laid out their marketing, right? Here's what I'm going to do to get your home sold. And I think that's really important as well, because sellers are going to want to know that. Again, in their minds, they're writing you a $20,000 check, and they don't necessarily know where it's going. So that's a really great way to show this is where it's going. And what a lot of agents do that I really like is when they set up those different tiered systems, right? Because I mean, we're all ideally, we don't fix prices, but ideally we're going to list for right around 6%. But I mean, have you guys, or do any of you use that tiered system where you say like, this is 6%, you can see this, 7% gets you this, 4% gets you this? With that strategy, everyone kind of falls in the middle. But I don't know, does anybody have experience with that? Is that what you do?
I have a 16 ton, which I know the ton like it's supposed to.
Yeah.
But the 8 I usually will say, if it's a like severe referral or past client referral, I usually say like 2 versus an 8. But I usually don't show them the commission differences. I just show them like I have the packages being the basic really plus. So I usually am showing people only the basic need, depending on like
So what do you get? Those packages?
so yeah, so like the agent package, and also typically talk to them of like reality is most agents do a lot of the same thing when it comes to marketing a home. Whether you're here or you're in California or you're in Florida, at the end of the day, even on a national scale, a lot of agents have kind of the same protocol that they go through. You know, have photos, you probably advise staging, you do a little bit of marketing, maybe you do social media, and then you kind of put it on the market and you see what happens. And that is fine and dandy, and a lot of people still sell their homes that way. But I don't think that this market is the right market to be wasting time on your home, potentially selling it for a lot less than you could get. So we go the extra step by doing geo-marketing, and we do a huge comprehensive
Recording in progress.
video and package, and just kind of show them like the things that are included. Like I include 50% of the staging as a credit at closing. So I also put in things that aren't specifically coming out of my pocket right away. And where the difference in what I include, like you have to make sure too with this that you're not putting something that's like, well, now I'm going to do all of these things, and then you're doing it for like $100 more than you would have made. Because the reality is, like, doing all of those things takes me a lot more time to do. So, you know, I look at that, but most of the time, people will choose that from.
Yeah.
Just by looking at it, like just yesterday, confirm again. So I think there's a lot of agents get fearful of even asking for that, and I think it's a little bit of like the imposter syndrome, especially for newer agents. But I also look at it like I started doing this when I started looking at my business as a business, and that like I don't do volunteer work. I do volunteer work, but not for my business. You know, I'm not running a nonprofit.
Absolutely.
So for me, if I'm going to invest that amount of time to do all of those extra things, there needs to be a purpose in it for me. But like the two lists are very different. Like the basic like this, right? It's like literally it's the basic things that every agent is going to do.
Yep.
and it costs me $400 to do it, you know, which is great. If someone chooses that, now I'm not doing all of the extra things, and that's the option that they chose. I'm still gonna do more than an average agent, but
What's the percentage of your basic? Is that 6 or is that?
That's
lower?
a 6.
Okay.
yeah, 6% is the lowest. Like in terms of like you mentioned, like a 4%. If I have someone asking me if I'll discount, most of the time the answer is no.
I would never either. I just heard people do that.
Yeah, a lot of people do, right? Because they think, well, this is how I'm gonna get it, and I'd rather take a little bit discount here. Totally understand that mindset. I have a lot of agents that have been going to do that. But for me personally, I'd rather, if you want me to do a job that's less than 6%, I don't know how to do that. So the reality is I'm essentially just giving you money at that point, and you're probably just not my client. And that has to be just okay. So.
I always look at the seller Alta and figure out what agents, you know, basically put in as the total amount.
Yeah.
I kind of back into, okay, how did I think of what they did or what they charged? It very often kind of like, okay, what they did. I feel more comfortable asking more as other people are doing and they're finding success. And yes, having a polished presentation will help sell that, but it's kind of like, you know, there's room for it. You ask for more.
Yeah, totally. I think it just comes down to what you're offering, right? Like my elite list, like Matterports are much more expensive now than when they first came out. I mean, they're like anywhere from like $400 to $600, right? And now there's the new Zillow 3D one, and like all of these extra things. So, I think just like owning that as an agent, that, you know what, like, yes, inflation is real, and guess what? That's also hit how I market homes, and it's much more expensive for me to market someone's home than it previously was 5 years ago. You know, and there's just many more tools now that not only help my presence as an agent, but will help the home presence. So, I think practicing those and like knowing like your steps and like having a very clear checklist, because the last thing you want to do is all of a sudden offer this new package that says that you're going to do all these things and then not realize that it does take more time to do that. Like if someone wants me to list their home in 2 weeks and they're like, nope, I'm moving out tomorrow, like get it on, I want to do this 8%, I'll probably say no, because it's not enough time for me to do the things that are included in there. That's something that's like, actually, you know, we could do that, but you'll have to wait.
Yeah, that's why that timeline conversation is so important. I mean, it's all about meeting expectations. And if you set unmeetable expectations, that's a really bad experience.
For sure.
Thank you for sharing. Anything else on that before we dive into our demo portion of today? Cool. So I did promise I would show you how to create these wonderful presentations on your own. So I will also say there are a lot of great tools to use, right? A lot of people use Canva. It's fantastic. That's all they do. For this presentation, I'm going to be using Command because I am a company man. And that's what we have. But just note, this is not your only option. However, this is the easy button on presentation. So we're going to dive into this right now. So I'm going to start by navigating to the Designs applet over here on the left. Kylie, would you be able to minimize the little boxes? Okay, perfect. Thank you so much. Okay, so this is going to first take us to, designs that we've created previously. Let's assume I've never created one. I will say how it actually works is I just have my one buyer, one listing presentation, and I just edit it as need be, right? Sometimes if, it was a house that was previously listed, like an expired or something like that, I will a lot of times take the photos of that house from the MLS and put them on that because it's their house.
Yeah.
It's kind of fun. And for buyers, right, I make sure to put their names on it. I have a little intro page that's like, hey, welcome to your buyer consultation. Your names. So I do edit them a little bit. You can do that from this page here, but let's assume we're starting from scratch. And I'm going to click create new design. And of course, this would be a print design. I will also say we've got a couple minutes. We're not going to go through and build a whole one. That would just be really redundant. But I'm going to show you some of the features and functionalities within this platform. And if anybody's having trouble creating their own, this goes for y'all online too, so long as you're a KW Lakes agent. If you're having any trouble, let me know. Come to Command Study Hall, and we can work it out and go through it together. But I'm just going to kind of show you the basics of design and where to find these templates. So before we dive into the templates, as we see here, we're in our sort of We Brand design builder. The first thing I wanted to touch on, circle back to, was something that Lauren said about marketing. I believe that was you brought up the somebody said something about a cohesive brand, the same colors, the same font, and that is super important, not just for these presentations, but for all of your marketing materials. So the first stop I recommend everyone goes to before they dive into designs for the first time is this button right up here that says Assets. So if we click on our brand assets, we have an opportunity to set standards for what those look like. You can create color palettes, right? You can create multiple color palettes based on the sort of branding you want to use, your materials, right? The first one there, the main palette, is what I use for a lot of my real estate stuff. The stuff on the right, it's just softer, it's nicer, I like it better. I use that for a lot of investing stuff. Like if I'm sending like mailers to people trying to get some off-market properties, I like that to be a little more unassuming. I don't like it to be like bold, bright colors. That's why I use softer pastels, just because it comes off nicer. And there's a lot to that. So when you create a palette, you can click add a palette right here. It'll bring you a blank one. You click add a color. You can put in your hex codes, or just, play this fun game that drives everyone crazy of trying to find the perfect shade of purple, whatever you got to do there. And then if we notice on our left, we have more options, right? So colors and fonts. Fonts are down here as well. If you have a custom font you've either created or purchased online somewhere, you can go ahead and upload that here. You can also find fonts on the web that you can purchase if you want to have a very particular font instead of what is sort of standard here with our designs. As we move down here, and one thing to note too, so I have a team here. So if you are on a team, a Rainmaker, you'll have one for your team and one for your personal. So we're just doing personal. As we move down, we can also set stock images for yourself, right? Headshots of you, any images you use on a regular basis. I need to update these badly, but that's images, and I'll show you where we find these as we move through. Text. This is all going to pull from your marketing profile, and you can add text here, but these are going to be texts that you use regularly. Your name, your email address, your phone number, your biography, anything you can really imagine, you can have it here so it's easily accessible while we're building these designs. Logos, again, goes without saying, it's important to be compliant because we don't want to get fined. So you can keep all of your logos, Market Center logos, personal logos, anything you want here as well. I'm going to skip, for the sake of time, elements and videos. They're just kind of silly animations and stuff, and we don't need to get into that. But these are the big ones: color, images, texts, and logos. Okay, any questions about the brand assets outside of how to access them? Because I'll get to that in a moment. Okay, so now we're back to the templates. A little detour there. And we're looking for the buyer and the listing presentation. Now, I'm only going to do one of them because they're more or less the same. Certainly how we edit them is exactly the same. But I'm going to show you where to find both. So, believe it or not, listings and buyer. So if we go into the listings tab here, we see we have a section for listing presentations. In here, we have 3 different templates. And just note, these are fully customizable. You're not committing to any colors, any font, anything. So I would just find a template that you like, just sort of generally like, then you can go through and continue to edit that. Under buyers, we have the buyer presentation option. So as you'll see, exact same thing, exact same templates, just geared towards buyers versus sellers. And again, if you are going to use both of these, I would recommend using the same template for each one, because being cohesive is very important. Who wants to pick which one we use? Favorite one? Second one. Your guide to home ownership. Let's do it. So for the last couple minutes here, I know we're at time, so if anyone needs to jump off, all good. I did promise I'm going to send these to everyone. So on Zoom, we have you. Before anyone leaves here, I'm going to ask you to write down your email address on the back of this. If you would like a copy, you don't need to do it now, but if you have to leave for an appointment, do that right now. Otherwise, I'm going to finish this and we'll be done in like 2 or 3 minutes. Okay, So we have our template here. This is our work page. Now, the first thing I want to point out is this is a multi-page document. A lot of our templates in here are single pages. So if you've never worked with a multi-page document before, the most important piece of it is going to be this button here at the bottom that says pages. This is how we navigate through this document. Another thing I want to point out is this template is 32 pages long. That's too long. None of these are 32 pages long. These are all like 10 to 16 pages long. So don't feel like you have to use every piece of this template. As we go through the pages, we can see, and we'll even see right here, this first page is not even intended to be included. This is for you. This is an instructional page that sort of walks through some of this stuff. So as we go through that, we can say, great, I want to delete this page. I don't need it anymore as part of my consultation. Before you do any customization, I would recommend going through this, getting the pages you want, and then diving through and customizing. Right, this is one with the client's name, nice little cover sheet. Why not? If you think that's creepy, then you can delete that also. It's up to you. Scrolling through, we'll see there are a number of pages in here. So like I said, first order of business would be to go through here, sort of cull through these sheets and get it down to a more manageable 16-page document or whatever you would like. Okay. All right. So I'm just going to use this page for no reason besides it's a page to use. I'm going to show you a couple different things on here, and then we'll cut you loose. So first, how do we edit these? So if we click anywhere on this page, these are fully customizable. So first, let's say I don't want to use this KW red. I'm going to go ahead and click on these letters here, and I'll see a toolbar jumps up to the top. Anyone who's used a word processor before, these should all be pretty familiar icons. One thing I do want to point out here, and this is how I like to use this, is you can click in here and edit the text within tablet here, but as you see, that can get kind of cumbersome because there's a lot of it and it's finicky. The typewriter tool up here is a fantastic way to easily edit text. You can do it right here instead of having to do it within the template. We also have colors, right? I click on this text, obviously it's red. I want to change that to one of my colors in my palette. We have template colors here. I don't want these, I want my library colors. So then I can choose between those palettes that were on.
Is there a way to like mass select for all the pages of like turn this color to this color or like related to be your palette when you click on it?
Yep, for text, so I just did there for all the text, you can do that. So I just did command, clicked multiple, so I have both of those selected.
Yeah.
And then here, that will work for that. However, if the element's different, you have to do that individually. So this one, if I want to change that, I can't do that in line with the text.
I mean, like multiple pages, though. Can you change?
I believe it's a page at a time. That's a good question.
Okay.
Yep. And again, I'll make no qualms about it. Canva is a superior tool to this because that is literally all they do. However, if somebody wants I don't want to put a lot of work into it, I want to push the easy button, swap out some colors, this is a really great option for it as well.
There's also, if you wanted to go on Etsy, you have really cool, like, all-inclusive things that everything, you can swap out pictures.
Yep.
That's right.
All the templates are there. Yeah, it was like $6 for like.
So as we move through here, I just want to point out, we do have different options. I know we mentioned there's a lot of stock images on these. So within each of these elements, we do have those options. So for logos, for example, right, we can pull up company logos or go to my assets. This is how we access our brand assets. For images, we have a ton of stock images in here that you can use. These are all folders full of stock images. Again, don't use that one, right? Because that's not where we live. You don't have cactuses, so make sure it represents where you're at. And then any one of these, my assets will always bring you to your assets. I want to show you just a couple more points before we boogie. I should not have deleted that page. Oh well. Let me find something here. Okay, one more thing I'll show you, and that is a KWLS. Now, this is one thing that is unique to our designs applet that Canva does not have, and that's MLS integration. So I'm going to find a page where we have some comps that should be in here somewhere. Nope. Oh, this is a buyer packet. There's not going to be any comps. Okay, so do me a favor. I just want to show you this functionality. Pretend with me this is a listing presentation. This is a page for comps, right? We have these little images. These are going to be homes. and these are gonna be the prices. Now, one thing you can do designs that I love is go to KWLS. And if you've looked up some comps and you wanna easily add them to this, you can search for those listings right here by address or MLS number. I'm gonna do search for address. You have to type in the address very specifically to get, because it's sort of just general, all MLS. Or sorry, it's not even like bound by our local IDX, it's just nationwide, so you get a lot of stuff in there. But not to belabor the point, I'm just gonna use a random one. This house looks cool out in Boston. So I'm gonna go ahead and select that. So as you've noticed here, this automatically pulls all of the photos and listing details from the MLS. So if you are doing a comp sold page, find a photo you like, highlight this photo, then you'll see we have the replace button, and you can just pop it in just like that. And then for the listing details, you can do the same, where you can just pop those in this text. Now for this, I wouldn't do the replace because it's a lot of text. I would probably just use the typewriter tool and then have this on the side so I can just see, great, listed at 375, bedroom, bathroom, whatever. So that was just one functionality I wanted to show you on here, the MLS integration. It's pretty nifty. Outside of that, it's pretty much just click and repeat, fonts and colors. Any questions? We are at 12:07, so it's time to roll. But any last questions before we get out of here?
Questions.
Yes.
So like, I'm working with like a first time home buyer and she just wants some like resources, like kind of guide her through the process. So before I give it, the presentation, I just want to send her some resources and links and stuff like that. I don't know, do you have any stuff on command or like what the kind of resources? Like I was assuming like I'm gonna think of like the financing, first time buyer financing aid and just information about the process overall.
I can give you a lender who actually is already associated with a lot of those. Like usually for first time home buyers, I'll just recommend like if they're looking, like sounds like they're maybe looking for down payment assistance or kind of financing options in that. So it's usually best to just link them with a couple lenders that have a lot of experience in that. Because it is something that if you're gonna use down payment assistance, you wanna make sure that that lender knows what they're talking about and that they're an approved lender already.
I don't even know like she needs that. Just like some basic overview of the process and some guys I'm assuming might be helpful to her. But just some preliminary like resources to send to her before the application.
I'll tell you really honestly, what I would do with that is I wouldn't send her anything. I would say, perfect, I'd be happy to share that with you. Let's meet at the office. And then we can talk through it, and then I'd give her the because that, that's where it all is. So I would, and if she's, here's one too, I like this one a lot, is if, you get, well, I'm not ready to meet yet. Great. A lot of the buyer, I would say every buyer I help find a house in this market has found it incredibly beneficial before they get to the point where they're actually ready to start seeing houses to meet with me, sit down and have a conversation about what they're looking for and what that's reflected like in the market, so that when you are ready to buy, we're already up to speed, because I don't want you jumping onto a treadmill that's going 30 miles an hour because you're going to scrape your knees. So if you have some time, I'm free Tuesday at 5. Let's come by the office and chat. I basically throw that out. But yeah, I mean, if they want that information, I'm happy to give it to you. You got to talk to me. And a big part of that too is a lot of times you're having that's a substantive conversation. So letter of the law, you need to present the agency relationship, and so. That's how I would handle that person, because I wouldn't give them anything. I would just close for an appointment and give it to them then. And if they weren't ready to meet, I'll say, great, let me know when you are.
Yeah. Like we have appointment already, but just like she might want to see something before the meeting.
Oh, if you have the appointment already, I don't think there's any harm in emailing a buyer presentation to them beforehand.
Okay.
I'm sorry, I thought you were saying they wouldn't meet with you. Like, I don't want to meet, just send me some information.
No, we have the appointment set, but she just wants some like maybe additional resource before the meeting. I was just thinking like you said that it's best not to send the slides sometimes before the meeting because they just gonna dive into the material.
No, I meant during the meeting. Like when we sit down and I'm talking to you, I don't want to hand you something to distract you.
Yeah.
I think it's totally okay, especially for listings, but buyers as well, to email them your buyer packet before and then give it to them afterwards.
I always state, like I send it and I state, read through it at your own pace. Book note questions or anything that you have, and I can discuss it after we have a chat.
Yep, absolutely. Yep. So sorry I misunderstood, but yeah, I would do that. And then the lender is also incredibly important
Yeah.
that you can answer, because that's the biggest question, right? What can I afford? How much is this gonna cost me? What are my payments gonna be like? So lender's a great resource for that. And we should never be providing that information, just connect them to a lender.
Or even having them fill out like a home buyer questionnaire form too, of like, hey, I'm gonna gather some information. That way, when we do meet on this day at this time, we're gonna make sure that we go over all your questions, so feel free to kind of bring them in here, and this is just to help me get to know.
We could have a broad questionnaire just for buyers.
Yes, I think we do as part of the PC resource library.
Correct.
I think we should. We can make one.
Yeah, we should have.
One more thing too, just a side note I always love, especially for buyer consultations, in addition to the packet, I always give them a blank purchase agreement. And I tell them this is yours, don't read it now, take it home and look through it. The next time you're gonna see this, you're about to spend $300,000. So I don't want that to be the first time you're reading this.
Yeah.
So read it, get comfortable with it, let me know if you have any questions.
That's a good idea.
Agreed.
Nothing more frustrating than trying to get an offer in and it takes 2 hours to sign it because they're reading through everything.
Or like, the first time they see it, they open it up and it says sign here now.
Yeah, with the authenticide, it takes you right to the site.
Yeah.
So, yep, so that's just a little aside. Was this helpful? Everyone who's
Yes,
listening?
thank you.
Awesome.
Great job, Jason.
Yeah, good job.
We are done. I am hungry.
Yeah. I don't know if we find out, by the way.